Yep, back at it. So continuing our talk about program design. So this first stage of program design is going to be just basic block periodization. When I'm talking about block periodization, you should take into account and take some ownership where you need to learn about periodization and you need to have a general idea in regards to what block training would look like from a training perspective for an adult, an athlete. Understand that this is just a training method. It isn't the end all be all. It's important that you identify the framework of the programming, and typically the framework is going to be, focusing on fundamental movements, making sure athletes and adults can move well, and then attacking it through a method of training to achieve that result. So what is block periodization? So essentially what you're doing is you're taking your microcycle and your phase of training, and that's going to be your block. That's going to be your focus. So you're going to pick a goal. This style of training isn't done as frequently as it was done when it first started coming out, simply because people realized that you don't just have to do one thing in a phase to get the adaptation that you want, and you have to factor in what the athlete is doing on their own as far as their sport. So athletes may need different things. So block periodization, the pros, it helps you just focus on one goal. It keeps it very simple, keeps the reps and set schemes very simple. It keeps the goal, and it doesn't really get too ugly and detailed with the programming. However, athletes' training plans and adults' training plans are a little more complicated. So I would primarily use block training for either a very, very novice athlete or an adult. An adult is a little more structured in their day-to-day routine. So, you can get away with just focusing on one goal. So back to what block periodization is for 1 month, you choose hypertrophy, you choose, conditioning or endurance, you choose strength, absolute strength, you choose, speed strength, strength speed, and you're just working on that every single session. Obviously, you have to take into account, monitoring load. You have to take into account, what exercises fit the bill in terms of the reps and set schemes. So what this could look like is if I am going to do a basic periodization model where it's going to be hypertrophy, strength speed, strength, power, that's my block. Well, if I look at hypertrophy, that would mean that I like the lower reps for the compound movements, and research shows, and even my experiential practices show that if I do 6 reps with a client, right, they'll still get bigger in a sense. And you can always change up the tempos to really fit the bill of time under tension if you need to hit 40 to 60 seconds of work. So I would do, if I was just block periodization, and I was going to do a total body split, I would choose, 2 main lifts for that day if it was 3 days a week. So I would do a trap bar deadlift, and then let's say I do a landmine press, right? So that would be my blocked focus of hypertrophy, where trap bar deadlift would be, 4 sets of 6, right? The volume fits the bill of hypertrophy. The time under tension fits the bill of hypertrophy. We do know, there is an element of size built when you're working on strength. It's a good transition into the next strength phase. And I don't like to do like 8, 10, or 12 reps for your compound lifts because they are utilizing a ton of muscle. You can load the bar up much heavier. Something's going to break down. So risk reward, I like 6 reps. So I do trap bar deadlift, 4 sets of 6, probably adding a filler. Then let's say I would do, and this is going to be stressed off that tier system. So then I would do, your total body lift, your lower body lift. To me, that could be, if it's, intermediate beginner athlete, it would be a goblet split squat, and I would stick to probably, 6 to 8 reps each leg, factoring in, right, they may fatigue with the goblet, and then I'll do a landmine press, 6 to 8 reps, focusing, trying to get that weight that they can press for 8 reps, maybe even 10 reps for that hypertrophic effect. So again, it would be trap bar deadlift, 4 sets of 6, working 4 sets of 6, but you have to factor in, what kind of athlete are you working with? Is it their first week? Is it their first month? Have they been there for 3 months? Because it's going to take time for them to figure out they're working. And then their B block would be a goblet split squat for, 3 sets of 8 each leg. Their landmine press, 4 sets of 8 each arm. And then the remaining of the lift would be 8, 10, or 12 reps. I'd add in a trunk movement, a rotational stability movement, stabilization, whatever you want to do, an ab wheel, a fallout, progressing to something harder, and that would be 6 to 8 reps. For the first month is always acclimation, so I'm not trying to OD them that first week. I need to make sure that they can move well, that they're feeling what they need to be feeling, and then we can progress. So I'm not going to do 12 reps of an ab wheel if they've never done it before. I might do 4 to 6 reps of that ab wheel using a wall, so I can build the tolerance, build the positioning, build the technique. So I don't fall in love with this idea of block training for hypertrophy has to be 8 to 12 reps, right? That's just the method, and you can maneuver and add in different methods within that training. And then the fillers are going to be the fillers. So the fillers are going to be 8, 10, or 12 reps. So it could be like a shoulder movement, a posterior shoulder movement. It could be a calf, a posterior chain, a leg curl. Depending on what that athlete needs, that C and D block are going to stick between 8 and 12 reps, depending on the level of technique, the level the athlete's at, the time I have left in the session. So it can be anywhere from 2 to 4 sets. And that's how I'm going to focus on that block periodization. So every single session, that main block, the upper and lower lift, is going to be 6 to 8 reps, focusing on hypertrophy. So it could be a trap bar for 6 to 8 reps. It could be a squat variation for 6, 8, or 10 reps. If they're a novice, I might hit 8 or 10 reps just to work on technique, build some blood flow. And then the day 3 would be some upper body variation, and that would be more 6 to 10 reps, depending on the athlete, depending on the movement. Dumbbell bench press, Viking press. It might be a landmine press for that 3rd day. But block periodization, you are just focusing on one quality. Okay, for athletes, we add in smidgens of other qualities from an athletic perspective, but from the resistance training phase, right, we're still working on that too. And even from the athletic phase too, we are, still working on a specific trait in plyos or speed, right? It could be technique, it could be force production, it could be absorption, deceleration, acceleration. That's how you would block, periodize the athletic piece, and then you are just progressing accordingly. So that second month could be just strength. So it's like 5x5s for everything, for your trap bar, for your your squat, for your upper body press, right? You could just do 5x5, and then week 2 could be 4x5, week 3 could be 3x5, however you want to do it. But the goal is just to get strong. Week 3 or month 3, let's say we're working on absolute strength, so you're going 6 sets of a double or triple depending on the level of athlete, or you're going 4x4s or something along those lines. So the negatives of that is you have the same amount of stimulus every single workout. So you are constantly hitting 80 to 90% or 70 to 80%. And athletes who are playing sports, they need some undulating methods, because if they come in on a Monday from a weekend tournament, they may not be able to handle 4 sets of 6 on that session. So that means that you might need to undulate that. That might need to be a higher volume day to drive blood flow, less plyos. So you have to be careful when you just program for block training, because you are pigeonholing yourself, and every session is the same amount of stimulus. I'll use it for young athletes, I'll use it for adults, but once I get to a more higher level athlete, the junior, senior in high school, who has 3+ years under their belt, who is in college, who's handled a lot of stress, who has a little more control over their schedule, I'll go to a different method. But that is going to be block periodization.